For years, I dreamed of being a mom and becoming a CTO. But I certainly didn't expect both to happen at the same time. It was the fall of 1997, and it was the dawn of internet advertising, and I was interviewing for my first CTO job at a major advertising firm. I also found out that I was pregnant. It was a good problem to have, but at the time, it did make me wonder, should I take the big job while I was also expecting? I was torn. I was torn because even though I had a successful startup in college, in the following decade, when I went into a senior tech meeting, I never saw anyone that looked like me, a minority woman. I was torn because it was a big deal to be a woman in tech, and because it was a big deal to go for that CTO role. And it really would have been much easier to take a different path and maybe step out of the tech world. I found out years later that a lot of women leave the tech industry about a decade into their careers. So I asked a trusted friend, an advisor, whether I should even mention that I was pregnant 3 months into the recruiting process. Was I supposed to tell them? And you know, he said, "You're perfect for the CTO job, and you're going to be a great mom." So that did it. I was so very lucky to get the right advice at the right time, to embrace my human motherness, my identity, and just go for it. I often think back to how lucky I was to get the advice that I needed at that right moment. And I had the necessary overconfidence to believe what he said and believe it would all work out. And indeed, it did work out. But it made for some pretty funny situations along the way. As it turns out, I was on the job the day I became a mom. Fast forward a few months, late spring 1998, and I was a very pregnant CTO. And on the day I went into labor, I was at the office. When I told my boss why I had to leave, and he figured out what was going on, he was the one who had to sit down. So I go home, and then he calls me at home, asks me about some details on a big project we were working on. And at one point, I just had to say, "Hey, boss, sorry, but I'm having a contraction." I know we're trying to launch a website, but I'm launching a kid. So, you know, it wasn't all smooth sailing. I won't pretend that it was. It was hard sometimes, and most of the years that followed was kind of a blur. I was reminded recently by a neighbor who told me that something stuck out in her mind. Across the back alley, my neighbor was an economist and also a mom, and she remembers seeing me across the back alley at 2 a.m. on a Sunday night, cooking and storing the family's meals for the week. Because I wanted my family to have home-cooked meals, even though I had a demanding job. She saw me do that every Sunday night for years. So what does all this have to do with being a CTO? As it turns out, everything. You might think that it was because I was a mom that made it harder for me to do my job, but actually it was my being a mom that pushed me to start secure mobile email and remote access for my company. I wanted to be able to work from home. So I saw it as a way that I could put my kid to bed and still not miss dinner or deadlines. All this technology back then was just taking hold. The stuff that we take for granted today, email on your phone and remote access. But back then, the big problem was you had to be in the office to do your job. Now we all take this for granted. But I saw the solution that I could be a mom and be where I needed to be and still do my work. So much of our lives and the engine of our modern economy are based in technology. And it's very empowering for women not only to participate, but drive those forces of change. So when we turn adversity into advantage, that's where the innovative ideas come from. If you own your identity, you own your humanity, and that's what makes great technology. It's really great how human-centered design is really taking hold, and that the humans designing the next generation of tech are actually starting to reflect the diversity of its users. For example, design firm IDEO hired 90-year-old Barbara Beskind to help design products for aging boomers. It makes sense, right? We should all take a role in designing the future of tech. Humans welcome. If we seek out adversity, it will help us to define the solutions. The biggest problems facing us humans are a pointer to the best solutions. It's the humans that make technology better. By humanizing the technology, by using technology for the greater good, we can harness the power of tech to democratize and equalize. Truly owning my identity and my obsession with humanizing tech played a huge role in the journey that led me to being New York City's first CTO and leading the Mayor's Office of Technology Innovation. So from there, how did I get here? Well, I kept up my overconfidence and more firsts, trying anything for the first time, a little crazy, but it took me on a lot of unexpected paths, trying to get out of my comfort zone, and I ended up in some amazing places. For example, the first woman on an all-male dragon boat team. The first bungee jump I tried was the world's tallest, 764 feet. And my first 300-mile bike ride was from New York City to Washington, D.C. And I just started CrossFit. We'll see if I survive that. Well, I first heard of the job, and I wondered if it was real. CTO of New York? What? The first ever, you say? Now you're talking. That got me interested, and I came to learn that this was the mayor's recognition of the importance of technology to the future of New York City government, and the importance of technology to the future of New York City's future. So this role was created to harness the creativity and energy of all New Yorkers, to deepen our connection between techies and government, to deepen the role of technology in our economy, in our schools, and in our civic participation. The CTO was tasked with creating a citywide tech strategy that will help all New Yorkers realize their full potential. And when a very tall man asks you if you want to make New York City history, the answer is yes. So we've seen the last 30 years of the internet give enormous power for people to publish and create videos of cats. And Twitter stormed through political barriers. Well, this is incredibly hopeful, because as our daily lives become ever more digital, and as technology becomes more personal, then there's an opportunity to positively impact health and mental health, education, homelessness, and many other areas. In developing countries, I have seen how one slow internet connection and a printer give economic opportunity to a whole village. A small child in a rural area can learn and read the great books and go to college and start a tech incubator. And we are doing this in New York City. New York City is now the second largest tech center in the world. There are more than 6,000 tech startups in the city, and the tech ecosystem, directly or indirectly, employs more than 300,000 people. The largest meetup in the world is New York Tech Meetup with over 41,000 members. Meetup was started right here in New York City, by the way. Over 150 investors and 800 tech events are listed on New York City's digital.nyc, our one-stop shop for all things tech in New York City. Sure, we're looking for the next tech billionaire to be from right here in Bushwick, right? Yeah. But New York's tech hub is also a pathway to the middle class. The tech sector pays well and provides New Yorkers with the opportunity to participate in the 21st century economy. How do we make sure that this opportunity is available for all New Yorkers? As we see the spread of technology, we also see a growing gap between the tech haves and the tech have-nots. Those that don't have access to broadband, don't have basic computer literacy, much less know how to code, will find it harder and harder to thrive in this technology-driven society. So how do you find a job, do your homework, or get information on just about anything without broadband or a computer or even a data plan? As a product of New York City public schools, my personal hope is that we use these technologies to spread knowledge and improve education, especially in underserved communities. If we don't prepare all of our New York City kids for the jobs of the next 50 years, we will leave an entire generation of kids stranded behind the digital divide. Here in New York City, we have an historic opportunity to shape a global tech hub that takes advantage of the beautiful diversity that defines New York City. Diversity is a huge advantage for companies. We have a diversity of industries here: fashion, health, tech, education, the arts, music. And we have an incredible diversity of our people. In Queens, where I'm from, there are over 100 nationalities speaking 160 different languages. We want to give the opportunity to all New Yorkers in every borough, in every race, male, female, and every gender in between, ethnicity, religion, age, veterans, immigrants, and native New Yorkers alike, will make the New York City Tech Hub the best tech sector in the world. There is untapped talent all over this great city, and I'd like to tap all of our talent. So let's go out there and create some great tech for all of us humans. I have a t-shirt that says Queen Geek on it. It really feels like I own my identity now. But I think the best word used to describe me is badass. I like it because it conveys a kind of bravado, authenticity, and competence that I can admire. As a society, we view women differently, and right or wrong, awareness of that and working with that can help you become more effective in influencing others and reaching your goals. This has been my love letter to tech and my love letter to New York City. And the amazing opportunity to combine those two loves, combine those two opportunities as the first CTO of New York City. I hope that all the humans out there, and maybe some robots, will join us in making New York City the most tech-friendly and innovative city in the world. Well, I hope you can see why being a human, a woman, a mom, a Filipina, and a proud New Yorker, well, it's not required for being a CTO, but it sure helps. Thank you.